go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Over 50 Starting Over, and this is our special guest edition. And I want to just remind you, you can get to all of our channels at over50startingover.com. You can watch the video on YouTube or go to your favorite Apple Podcast, Google, whatever it may be. So, Merle, please introduce our guest. This is only a half hour, so we're going to go pretty quick, but it's a pretty important one, so bring us in, please.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this show. Marian Sheridan is our guest today, and her team have been on shows just recently, like Nightline on Tucker Carlson, on Martha MacCallum's show as well. And Marian's got quite a resume here. She is the co-founder of the Michigan Conservative Coalition. She's the co-founder of the Trump Republicans and the Grassroots Vice Chair of the Michigan Republican Party, and also one of the organizers of Operation Gridlock, which we're going to talk about more fully here today. This happened in Lansing, Michigan on April 15th, and it was a protest against the executive orders of Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan. That sparked a national movement of concerned citizens over their civil rights and their livelihood. And as we talked about earlier in a couple of episodes, that this is impacting everybody, not only in this country, but also throughout the world. We brought up the Operation Gridlock in the last show, and we talked about 2 shows ago about a park down the street from me that had been cordoned off. And Barry and I were discussing the fact that, hey, if we want to protest this, are our civil liberties, where our right to assemble has been taken away because of this social distancing? And does this offer an opportunity for a unique form of activism and somebody to really take the ball and run with it? Well, today we're going to be talking to Marian Sheridan, who put together Operation Gridlock and a very unique way of protesting. So, Marian, welcome to the show. Wanted to ask you first about your organization, and then about this this protest, which actually had some unique features to it. So tell us about your organization.
Well, first off, I want to say to Barry and Merle, thanks for having me. So yes, we started the Michigan Conservative Coalition about 5 years ago in Michigan, and it really was to help to promote constitutional values in our candidates and in Michigan policy across the state. And we've been pretty successful with it. We've helped elect conservatives to our Michigan legislature across the state. And as far as policy, so we saw this as an opportunity. We had a lot of businesses that were coming to us. They were complaining about what was happening in our state, how they were pretty much dying on the vine from the governor's executive orders. Now, I just want to clarify that people are not, I don't believe the protest was against the governor's executive orders. We're all on board with her. We understand that she's, she's trying to set this up to protect the citizens of Michigan, and we were all behind her. We're like, yeah, we get it. This is a little bit different of a virus going through, and we need to be mindful and help to protect each other. That was March 15th when we went into less than, no more than groups of 10, social distancing, hand washing. Okay, we get it. Restaurants were closed, businesses were closed. About 10 days later, she came out with another executive order that was really quite, her choices were quite arbitrary and overreaching in many aspects, where people started, she started to lose people. It was like, okay, this is going over the top, and in some of the cases, it doesn't seem equitable. So that is why, we just thought, we'll set this up and see what kind of response we get. And it really was incredible, because we ended up with, by the state police estimates, over 10,000 cars participating in what we call Operation Gridlock.
And with her doing these executive orders, Michigan is a very diverse state with very different counties and cities. Isn't she stepping on the toes of mayors that should be handling their individual cities uniquely, and maybe leaving alone some of these uh, counties that really don't have the same level of threat?
Well, that is exactly what I think motivated the anger behind this, because we have 83 counties in Michigan. Three of them are responsible for over 80% of the COVID-19 cases.
That says
That
a lot.
means 80 have much less numbers, and there's like 25 that last I looked had less than 10 cases per county, yet they were under the exact same restrictions as Wayne County, Macomb County, Oakland County, much more populated areas that, that we can understand it for those counties.
Yeah, so Marian, the protest was in cars, and we saw that on the national news. It was all over the place, and that's actually sparked protests in Washington and California and Phoenix, Maryland, all over the place. Some of them are doing exactly what you were doing. Can you just elaborate more on it was cars? How did you set that up in the first place and get such a huge response to that to begin with?
Uh-huh. Well, we have active Facebook pages, and I'd like to touch on that again in a few minutes, but we have very active Facebook pages, and we sent out a press release, and we have a great guy in our group that is phenomenal at getting national attention or local attention with his press releases. And much of the media picked it up. Our major local radio stations before the rally had us on talking, so we were able to garner a lot of interest before the rally even happened. So that's how, we have had, since the rally, we have had many states contact us asking us, like, how do you do this? There's no big secret to it. It's not, it's pretty simple to put together.
Marian, it really points to the fact that, as individuals, we can really make a difference. It doesn't take the government to make a change. And isn't it really the whole premise of the country based on the individual first and individual rights? And you have put that all together. What a great example that you've been able to live. Now, doing these things on social media and putting that out there, you mentioned you were going to talk about that later on, but what we're seeing here is a suppression on social media. Did you all run into anything like that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we are seeing, in many cases, things that we post on our Facebook page, Facebook is taking down. If you even, it seems like, now more and more truth is coming about China's connection to this. But if you even pointed a finger at China, Facebook was taking down that post, at least off of our Facebook pages.
Wow.
And now we understand that, even across the country, as more groups are trying to organize these protests, Facebook is now taking their posts down and they're not allowing it. So that's really disturbing. That's why these podcasts, these kind of shows that you guys are doing are so important.
You know what else I think would be important when you say that? I had no idea that Facebook was doing that. They've been accused of guiding so-called free speech for quite some time now. I didn't know they were doing this. So this makes me think, we have here in Cleveland Heights, and I guess Ohio, I don't know, but as Merle has in LA, we have the Nextdoor app, nextdoor.com. Do you guys have that?
Yeah, we do.
I think that's a pretty powerful tool. Now, they do have their moderators that.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. And I know out here, well, you know what, to be perfectly honest, we've had to get away from all political talk. It just gets really, really damn near violent out here. So I don't know how it is for you, but I will say, when it comes to things like new taxes, we love our taxes here in Cleveland Heights, that there is free and open debate on it all the time. So it's very helpful in those ways. And I know if we had a governor that was doing executive orders like this, it would be all over the place. And I think
Yeah.
that would pretty much go unhindered. So are you guys doing that?
Are we doing
Nextdoor, debating, talking about this stuff on
um,
Nextdoor, where you might have a little more freedom
just
to
a
do
little
so.
bit? We're much more active on Facebook. I know, recently I made a post on Nextdoor in the political section about, it's like, I remember during 9/11, everyone had their American flag out after
Mm,
9/11. It was like us, it was like the rise of patriotism.
it was
And
for about 2
Americans were
months.
proud to be Americans because of what they were doing. And I don't know why it's not different now. We're all in this together. We're all struggling together. So I put out a post about flying your flag to show, your the strength of our country and support for each other, and against. And this is where I made my error. I said against the communist Chinese coronavirus. And 2 people complained and my post was taken down.
I'm sure.
That's exactly what I wanted to bring up, is that now in more than ever, we have such parity. And I wanted to go back to Operation Gridlock and talk about your experience really in the field on that. There seems to be a real big contingent that's out there. Their whole aim is to shame you if you have a
Yeah.
different opinion than I don't know if you would say the line out there that's socially acceptable. What was your experience during the protest and then also after the protest?
Well, I was in the middle of the protest, so everybody that was participating, was, very supportive of it. That's why they were there. I guess later I heard there were a few Antifa people further out of town that couldn't make it in.
That's
But
good.
I was kind of thinking it's kind of interesting because they wouldn't want to be in their cars because they really they couldn't intimidate anybody if they were in their cars. So it was like the perfect protest.
Wow.
And they couldn't be out of their cars because then they would be accused of what they wanted to accuse us of doing, and that was not social distancing.
Mm.
So
You did have an unfortunate incident, though, with people outside of their car, getting outside of their cars and with some guns. And it allowed some less reputable news sources to focus on that, to make that the focus, rather than
yeah,
the
yeah, we
successful
did.
protest that you did have.
Yeah, we did. It's like the national media wanted to bring that up. They wanted to bring up that people were carrying guns, and it's like we would repeatedly tell them, it's like, look, our protest, what we told people that were participating in our protest, stay in your cars, be very mindful of social distancing. It's like bring food, make sure that you understand that bathroom stops are going to be very limited, but stay in your car, stay safe. You're going to have other groups. Another group took advantage of the fact that we had organized this large gathering. They could tell it was going to be large. You could tell from Facebook. We had 20,000 people respond on Facebook that they were interested in attending. So this other group set up a protest on the lawn of the Capitol. Nothing to do with us. Nothing to do with us. And people were there. They had their flags. It was, and their guns. So of course, that's where much of the media took a lot of pictures. They didn't take a picture. We have the drone images. We hired a drone and had drone images of every exit outside of the city lined up for 3 miles in every direction down every expressway.
We did actually. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, but that 150, 200 people on the front lawn of the Capitol is what all the media was taking pictures of.
Well, we saw those pictures, of course, and we also did see the drone pictures as well, with cars that were going off on streets beyond what the eye could actually see, which was quite amazing, to be honest with you, especially being the first protest that I've ever seen like this ever. It looked quite successful as that's concerned. But as you know, the governor seemed to really key off of the pictures of those individuals who weren't wearing masks. And I heard that she actually had threatened after the protest to extend the stay-at-home executive order because this is the exact kind of thing that can spread COVID-19. It seemed to me that she was capitalizing on that.
Yeah, she did capitalize on it. And, it's unfortunate. It's like we're looking for a leader. And like I say, we were behind her to begin with, but then, she came out with her last executive order, which was so over the top. People think that we don't want to just, stay sheltered. That is not what this was about. This was about businesses that were being sucked down the drain inequitably, one over another. That's what the protest was about.
And it's a worthy cause, because if people can't go to work, they actually aren't going to be able to support the tax base, which is how the government works in the first place. I found it ironic today when I saw a clip of Governor Whitmer comparing the whole COVID-19 to World War II. I'll paraphrase, but she had said that that President Trump had compared this to war, and she agreed with that. And then she talked about World War II and said that people had not gone to the Capitol and protested on the steps, that they rolled up their sleeves and went to work. Now, we all know this, that they went to work in factories to produce munitions and planes and ships in order to fight the war. Doesn't it seem ironic to you that she would say that people didn't protest, that they rolled up their sleeves and went to work, when she's actually extending a stay-at-home executive order?
Yes. And talking about World War II, when in World War II, the media and the opposition party of the president at that time rallied behind him. They didn't try to criticize the president. They were all behind him. We were all on one team. And yet we know what happens at these press conferences with the president and through the national media. It's like the guy, they just look for anything wrong or anything that they can twist into being something that he's done incorrectly. So
that's absolutely for sure. But what is your governor? What do you speculate? What is your governor's end game here? Why is she's got to know she's sticking her neck out here with these drastic executive orders? What do you think she's getting out of it?
Well, first off, I don't think like I've had a chance to tell your audience exactly why we consider these executive orders so drastic. And so I just want to point out a few points to answer that question. So after her last executive order, she said that you could no longer gather in groups of 3 or more. So we went from 10 or less, to you could only gather in groups of 3 or less. If you had a home in another county, you had 2 homes, and a lot of people do in Michigan. You have, not a lot of people, but it's like we're a beautiful state. So people own homes in different parts of the state.
Cabins, right?
Yes. You cannot go to that home. She was not allowing people to go to their own property. She was allowing the sale of alcohol, marijuana, lottery tickets, cigarettes, but sections of stores had to close off, and you were not allowed to go to other sections of the store to purchase anything that she didn't consider essential.
That's pretty scary on a lot of fronts. I do. What is your hope to rectify the situation? What do you hope to get in the near future?
Well, we thought we saw movement with her. She came, even though she came out the day of the rally with the press conference, and she was literally attacking the protesters. And I just read a Detroit News article today that talked about her accusing that the protesters blocked emergency vehicles, yet Sparrow Hospital, which is the downtown hospital in Lansing, and the Lansing police both came out in statements and said that there was no problem caused by the protesters. Yet she wants to once again blame the protesters that somebody may have died because an emergency vehicle couldn't get through. And that was totally proved as false from the Lansing police and from Sparrow Hospital.
You know, we saw a lot of shaming online regarding that. It seems like the shame police are out there in full force regarding this whole thing. But I did hear that Joe Biden was considering Governor Whitmer as a possible vice presidential running mate. And do you think that the things that she is doing are motivated by this?
Yeah, absolutely. The people in Michigan can see it. They know it. It's like early on, after she had her first executive order, she was on a lot of national talk shows. I think that she was really trying to maneuver herself into that position. And I don't know if she just thought, I'm going to come out with the second executive order, and I'm just going to really crack down and really, stop any spread in my state, and I'm going to make a name for myself. So I think that was definitely on her radar screen. Articles came out after the rally addressing that issue and saying that she is no longer on that short list.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. I wouldn't think that any of this would help, because it seems to me that people are smarter than what the media is giving credit for. And as we know from the last election, the polls can't be counted on any longer either.
Yeah.
Now, we did find out that the Republicans in the state assembly have put out a bill to limit the governor's executive order powers. And then we also heard that Governor Whitmer was set to veto that as soon as it hit her desk. But of course, we know that can go back. And if there's a majority or a supermajority in the assembly, that this could still go forward. What do you think the chances of that are? And can you tell more about that? Okay.
Yeah, not good. From what we understand, she originally, and this is an example once again of her extremism in order to garner attention for her possible VP. She originally wanted to extend her executive order to June 10th. And this was, I think, at the end of March. She wanted a 70-day extension. Our legislature went in and gave her another, I think it was 25 days, somewhere around there. So we just don't think that the legislature, they're always willing to compromise with her. At one time, when she last fall, she wanted to implement a 45-cent gas tax to repair our roads. I mean, it would put Michigan absolutely in the top spot for the highest gas taxes in the country.
Wow.
And it's like, so it ends up, being a compromise with her. And we wish our legislature, the Republican majority in the House and the Senate, we wish that, it was shown a little bit more.
Absolutely. From everything that's being said, unearthed here, it sounds like she needs to update her resume. What do you think?
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually seeing where other governors are actually copying the same thing that Governor Whitmer is doing. So it doesn't seem like this is very unpopular amongst mostly Democratic governors that are out there. What could be the motivating factor on this? Is this really an attack on our civil rights nationally?
Well, I think that, I think a person in this position always likes to have more power. And I think that, it is, I don't know if they look at it as an opportunity to make more and more citizens of the state dependent on the government. So that's always a worry. So I don't know what her motivation could be along that line. I think she is definitely putting politics over the citizens of our state, though. I don't know if I had mentioned that, so we have the 3 counties where we have the most COVID cases, and in 80 counties, have so many less. And it is, these are the places that are really suffering. We know there's people that are suffering with COVID-19, these are the areas that are suffering from COVID-19. And, the people are now more afraid of losing their livelihood, losing their liberty, than they are of contracting COVID-19.
Wow, that's a big statement right there. And we are running out of time. Maybe one more question, Merle, if you have it.
Well, I almost hate to end on this note, but you did mention drones and being able to monitor the success of your Operation Gridlock. But I was just watching a report last night about these drones that have been purchased from China, and a listing of the states that these have gone to, and one of them was Michigan. How do you see? I mean, are you seeing that? Of course, they're hard to see in the sky, but what could these possibly be being used for?
Well, they could be used for crowd monitoring. Someone had the idea. So we're restricted to only our household. Yet, if you have a boat that you own and it's in your backyard, because we have so many lakes in Michigan, you can't even go out on your boat. You're not allowed. The governor doesn't allow the people that you live with in your house to go out on your boat. You can go out in your car, but you can't go out on your boat or your jet ski. You can go out in your kayak, but not your jet ski. So I saw a friend of mine that lives on a lake, and I was asking him, he said there was a boat on the lake. And I'm like, well, how do they know there's a boat on the lake? And he's like, they probably have drones that are monitoring the lakes to see who's out on the lakes. So it's very scary.
Is there a fine for that? I mean, is there
Up
a
to
monetary?
$1,000.
$1,000.
Up to $1,000.
What an insane thing. You cause people to not be able to work, and yet if they violate one of these rules, you're going to charge them $1,000. Does that seem like this is how they recoup their tax shelter on this, or tax revenue? I mean, this is insanity.
It seems like more and more of the sheriffs around the state and the counties are refusing to abide by that or issue tickets. So, I think that's kind of encouraging and hopeful that these sheriffs, and I think the more they see doing that, the more they're motivated to step forward and defend the citizens that they protect.
Well, that's some good news there to end on. And I'm sorry, we are out of time here. And Marian, I really want to thank you for sharing this with us. And I really hope that you guys reclaim your constitutional rights here pretty soon. But I'll also say this, we're going to be on the other side of this before we know it. It's happening quickly.
God willing,
so.
yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Marian, if people wanted to get involved with you and find you online, how would they do that?
Well, they can go to either Michigan Conservative Coalition Facebook page, or they can find us at Michigan Conservative Coalition Facebook page, or MichiganConservativeCoalition.com.
All right. With that, thank you very much, Marian, and good luck with your plight.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.